This is Stephanie Kwame from the CAD Academy. The CAD Academy is a pre-engineering, pre-architecture program with STEM-based curriculum, and it is brought to you entirely through the Solidworks dealer channel. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to work with a company that is very dedicated to education. Indeed, it has a whole channel ready and at your fingertips. The CAD Academy has a series of exercises that help students learn this program. And we start with a very simple exercise, which we're going to demonstrate right now. But it also has on-screen tutorials. They have customer portals, but they also have an educational portal that has a catapult and it has a NASCAR. So things that you're used to doing or projects that you might be used to doing are definitely available. If I wanted to start a new project or a new part, I would start with this sheet of paper. And notice I can do parts. Parts are part of assembly, and a drawing is a drawing to help people understand how it's actually constructed, the part is constructed. I'm going to say OK. And as this loads this will give us a history of our part as we start creating our part. And in the truest sense of the word, an engineer would start with sketches of or ideas. So we're going to start with the sketch. We're going to make a plate. So I can do anything here that's not grayed out. So I'm going to start with a rectangle. And the next thing is the plane. And of course, knowing the correct plane to start your part is very important. I'm going to start this in the front plane. In particular, I like to have things in a plan view when I'm drawing, so these are viewing tools right up here, and this one allows you to change your drawing screen into the plane that you're working with. I'm going to go ahead and just do a rectangle. This looks a lot like a UCS, and I don't really need to worry about that on this lesson, but in other lessons I definitely would. So now I have drawn some geometry on the screen, and the next thing I want to do is define that geometry. Solidworks has some smart dimensioning, and it is really smart. I know that if you have done other 2D packages, you've heard of dim linear, dim angles, dim rad, dim radius, and everything is done with smart dimension because it's smart enough to know what geometry we're selecting. So again, we're going to select smart dimensioning. I'm going to select this line, and I'm going to come up, and now I can actually tell it the size of that. This is called parametrics. So I'm going to say that that's 4 and do the check mark for OK. Let's go ahead and define this one as well. And this one is also 4. So we're making a kind of a plate that's a cube. I'm going to go over here and say OK to the dimension. Now I want to add features. So to add features, I go to this tab, and you can see I can extrude or revolve, and the others, the things I can't do, are grayed out. Well, I want to extrude this plate. And now there are lots of options here. I can do from a certain midway, I can say a different direction, I can say blind or through, but basically I'm going to change this value and say I want this plate to be 0.25 in thickness, and just say OK. And so now I have a plate that has a thickness of 1/4 of an inch. Now let's go back and sketch some more. We're going to further define this part. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this into my plan view, and I want to put a post on top of this plate. So it says first over here, select the top or the face, and of course if I select there, it is on the top. I'm going to go ahead and put a circle in here, and the circle needs to have a radius of 1. So I can come over here and define geometry over here as well. Now one thing about it is I want that always to be in the center of that. Now I eyeballed it, but it's not necessarily accurate. So again, I go to my smart dimension. I say I want a dimension from here to this center point, take my dimension line out, and I have a pretty good eyeball today, so I'm going to say that is a value of 2. Then we're going to come from here, and we want to make sure we see that center mark, and come down here, and this one is also 2, so that should shift it over. If you were way far off on that circle, that will shift that over to the center for us. If you make a mistake, you can basically select what you don't want and delete it, and you can also run through and change things by going through the item list of what we did. Okay, now we've got our post on there, and now we want to add features. So I'm going to go over here to features, and if this ever happens, this happens once in a while, your command manager gets a mind of its own and bounces out, double click on the top right here, and it goes back home. That's a good, that happens almost every class I do, so that's a big hint there. Okay, let's go here and put this into an isometric view, and we want to again extrude that. We are going to extrude that post 0.25, so that is correct. The defaults are correct for me, and all I have to do is say OK. Now the this part goes into a machine that has a fillet on these corners, and so if I look up here now, I can see that I can fillet. So let's go ahead and select a fillet, and let's go ahead and select these corners, and I can change the value before or after. You think you can't get that one, but you can. And we'll go into here. The fillet is 0.10, so I like everything about that. So I say OK. Now you notice that I kind of went in here and it brought out that corner for me. If I would like to, I can change display states. And so if I arrow down on here, I can show a wireframe, which I call optical delusion, because you never know when you're up or down. And this is with hidden lines, which is wonderful. And that's just hidden wireframe. And then that is rendered. But it's easy and great to operate it right in that, like that, with the lines so you can see them clearly, and to have it as a solid. Okay, so now we're going to simulate or say that this is going to be welded on here, because this is made out of a metal material, and I can find a chamfer, which I'm going to use for that by arrowing down here and selecting chamfer. Chamfer has an angle and a distance, and we're definitely going to do that the distance is correct and the angle is correct for what I want to do. So I'm going to come over here and select the bottom there and say OK. On this little exercise too, we start thinking about the conserving in everything we do. So we're going to take some material out of this. We could also do after we take material, a finite element analysis on it and find out where its weak spots might be, and strengthen it if we need to. But we're going to flip this thing on its back. So I'm going to say OK here and go to the back. Now I'm going to take a shell command, and a shell shells out materials. Again, on this exercise, it's a beginning exercise, and we want everybody to feel really good about making this and be successful. So we are just taking the defaults. Now it says select faces to remove. I want to remove the back of this. One thing we definitely want to do is we want to show a preview so we're sure it's going to do what we want it to do, and it looks great. So we say OK or check, green check. Now if you want to, you can do things with your mouse, the roller mouse, but I have a laptop, so you can also go in the middle of nowhere, is what I call it. Right click, and let's go to a rotate view, and then you can kind of see what you drew. And if that is your first part, and again we have a quick start tutorial on how to do that, I want to wish you congratulations. One thing that Solidworks does is it forces you to save your parts, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So let's go up here, and it's like Microsoft Office. If you want to get that file menu, you got to go up to the logo. And I know when Office first started doing that, it was difficult for me to find the file menu, and I felt very unhappy about that. But I'm going to go ahead and save this. Notice this saves this as a SolidWorks PRT part. and it will automatically name it, or you can name it yourself. And if this is an educational experience, you probably want to have a jump drive and save your drawings to a jump drive. Okay, now that I've saved that, I'm going to go and do a drawing. So let's go ahead and go to that sheet of paper. And what happens here, I can relate this to the ArchiCAD that we use, which is a parametric solid modeler for architecture. But it makes life easy. You model the part, and then everything else is easy for it. So you don't have to be redoing it several times in different views and dimensioning it a million times. It's just one place. You make changes one place and it changes everywhere. And I think that's a wonderful feature. I'm going to my sheet of paper. I'm going to select drawing. I'm going to say OK. And this will load up some title blocks, and these are pre-done title blocks, or you can do your own title block if you'd like, but we're going to go ahead and work with an ANSI A. I'm going to say OK, and it's going to be a little bit tight, but we'll work with this. And over here you will probably see your part. If not, you can go and browse for it, but the big thing to do is double click on parts. And now the next thing is going to be very important, and a lot of people just like to buzz ahead, so that I just hate that. So don't go ahead. And what's important is, what view did we start in? The front view. So you want to make sure that is selected so that you can easily come over and say, I want this view here, I want that view there, and I want this view here. It's a little redundant, but there we've got it anyway. And then go up and to the right and click, and we'll pull that down later. And when you get done with that, you can either right click OK or press escape. And that was pretty easy. Now if I come near this, I get the universal move command. So just lean on that move and drag her down, and there we have that the 3D view. I could do all kinds of things here, like change the scale of this one, leave the others the same. I could also do something that we already learned, come up here and make that a rendered little tile. I'm going to escape out of here so nothing is highlighted. I don't want anything highlighted on the screen. And let's go to Annotation, Model Items. Let's bring in the model items, or the model items we did for dimensioning. I'm going to say OK, and of course there's a lot of different things that you can do with all of these, a lot of variations, but I'm going to say yes. And again, this just gives you such a very quick and look at SolidWorks, and it also demonstrates how easy it really is. Now this is too tied up here. I can delete that whole viewport, or if I want to, I can move these dimensions by clicking on them into a different place I would like to move them, or pulling them out if you can't read it. So again, all of this is changeable. And the last thing that we do on this introductory lesson is we go to Hatch. And Hatch of course represents the material. ANSI 31 is like the most used hatch apparently, but you have any kind of hatch pattern that you would like or need. And all I'm going to do is come over and select that, and it hatches. So if you have been intimidated or worried about SolidWorks, or that it might be too hard for you, it is not. It is the easiest package and very, very powerful package to learn. And again, we have a series of lessons that have exercises, so you have a step-by-step lesson that you go through, like on this particular exercise, and then you have 3 or 4 parts that you have to figure out how to make, and believe me, you can do it. It's worked all over the United States. But hopefully that helped you and gave you a little introduction to SolidWorks. And again, you can find SolidWorks in a wonderful bundle called the CAD Academy. and again sold through your Solidworks dealer channel. And they also sell some pretty awesome prototyping machines, CAM machines, so they can help you with a lot of different things, and a wonderful wonderful group of people to work with. Thanks for listening.